by far, one of the worst parts of any business, and I mean any business of any size, from solopreneur to multinational corporation, from $100,000 in sales to $100 million in sales, whether it's in Canada, the United States of America, or Australia or Europe, literally anywhere in the world, one of the worst parts of any business is the beginning. The start of any project, the start of any business, the start of any marketing campaign, the start of any new product is always the worst. It's the slowest, it's the most expensive, it's the riskiest with like the lowest chance of success, lowest certainty of success, I should say. It's the most frustrating. The beginning is the worst. There's a perfect analogy to flying. I'm going to draw something for you. Check this out. So let's say that I'm in Austin and I want to get into a plane, and let's say that I want to fly to, let's say, New York City. Now, my plane, if this is the ground, it's going to need to climb, then it's going to cruise, and then it's going to descend. It's going to spend 20 minutes climbing. It's going to spend, I don't know, 3.5 hours cruising, and then it's going to spend something like 20 minutes descending down into New York City. This plane will operate at something close to 100% power during the climb. During the cruise, it'll operate at something like 65% power. Why is that? It's because it's so much harder to get started than it is to hit cruise altitude. Now it gets even worse. Not only is it significantly less efficient and slower and more frustrating and difficult to get it off the ground, look at the actual progress that you get. If we know that Austin to New York City is a certain number of miles or kilometers, how many of those miles am I actually traveling while I'm climbing? I spend all my energy just getting off the ground. I make very little actual progress on my overall journey to New York City. Whereas when I'm up here, not only is it easier, less effort, it's also dramatically faster because I can cover so much more ground given the same amount of time, energy, and in the case of business, money. Now, here's the crazy thing. I'm sure you agree with everything that I'm saying here. It seems pretty straightforward. How does this play out in the world of business? Let's say I'm in Austin. And as an entrepreneur, I say, I want to start a podcast. It seems to be all the rage. Everybody's doing it. I've gone to hear some speakers who said it's a great idea. Let's do it. And so I begin the journey, right? I begin the journey of climbing and learning how to do podcasts and getting the right equipment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then along the way, I say, geez, you know what? My friend, I saw an update on Facebook. I talked to him. He's crushing it at writing a book. I really think that's something I need to do. Okay. Writing a book is a different journey altogether. That's like saying, instead of the podcast, which is Austin to New York City, we're going to start a second flight, which is Austin, and this one's going to go to Chicago. Here's a crazy thing is, as we're climbing and just figuring it out, how do we get listeners? How do we monetize our audience? Do we want sponsors for the podcast? Now we say, oh geez, I got to go start writing this book. And before this thing ever hits the cruising altitude, off we've gone to go begin a different journey. And now we said, well, I'm going to go do the Chicago journey. I'm going to start writing a book. And that only ever gets to about here. And then we say, oh shoot, I see what's happening with video these days and how powerful it is. I need to start a YouTube channel. This is absolutely crucial. So off I go on a third journey, right? And this journey is going to take me to Seattle. At no point have I hit cruising altitude in any of these projects. Now, what does it mean to hit cruising altitude in any of these projects? To me, cruising altitude is once I've figured out how to make a particular project or campaign work. And I've also put the right team with the right tools, the right meetings, the right resources, the right money, et cetera, into place that it can run without me. Now I've hit cruising altitude. So I'll give you an example from my very own business experience. In the past, I've done live events, and I would do one live event per month. I mean, literally in person. I would show up at the Hilton. Business owners would come and hear me speak. And I'll tell you, the first kind of 3 to 6 months, we learned so many things. We figured out, you know what? We need to cut a deal with the hotel that we can just leave our banners there so we don't have to constantly be moving them back and forth from my house to the hotel and back to my house and back to the hotel. It was such a drag. Secondly, we figured out that people don't really respond to voicemail messages. We need to be sending them text messages and emails and invitations, actually paper invitations in the mail. That's what we figured out. We also figured out that the best way for us to run the actual registration table was by taking one of the people who is a regular and have them volunteer and show up kind of 20, 30 minutes before the event to start welcoming folks and whatnot. So then I could focus not on setting up the room, not on doing all the marketing stuff, not on being the front table registration person, but rather to do my job, which was to come up with the content for that month and then deliver an awesome presentation. We did that live event for, I think it was 27 or 28 consecutive months. So it was like in excess of 2 straight years, every single month. I was there at the Hilton presenting. And so us getting it up to cruising altitude took something like 3 to 6 months to get it sorted out. But by the time we hit this point, I literally would show up at the Hilton 20 minutes after the event had started. So the first part of the event was just networking. So networking is going on. I would show up 20 minutes after the event had started. I would walk to one specific back corridor and stand outside one specific door, and 5 minutes before my talk was to start, the videographer, who my assistant Sarah booked, would walk out, put a lapel mic on me. The MC, who was another volunteer from the audience, would go up to the front and begin an introduction, and the registration table person from the entrance would then come inside, and I would walk on stage. I got to be the surgeon who just walked into the room, performed after I had finished speaking, shook hands, kissed babies, did the networking thing, answered a few questions, took some business cards home, and got to business. That is what cruising altitude looks like. As entrepreneurs, we're usually pretty driven, smart people who can see the possibility in things. And we get ourselves into major, major trouble when we start making a lot of different babies without an appropriate amount of energy going into raising the baby. Keith Cunningham has such a great analogy. He says, pretty much everybody on planet Earth, like 6 or 7 billion of us, not everybody, but pretty much everybody, enjoys the feeling of making babies, if you know what I mean. and making a baby is like it can happen in one night. Just like as entrepreneurs, we can conceptualize an idea in like 10 minutes or in half an hour or an hour or a day. What's far more difficult, that takes weeks and months and years and maybe even a couple decades, is actually raising the babies, is actually building the business machine that's going to not only bring your great idea into existence, but bring it into maturity and self-sufficiency. I think about my business Great Assistant as another example, and how I've literally stood at a networking event with entrepreneurs. Somebody asked me what Great Assistant was, and I said in 7 words, just 7 words, we help entrepreneurs get a great assistant. And he said, are you serious? I said, yep. He said, sign me up. The guy literally gave me his credit card on the spot. Then from there, I was able to pass on that payment information to my team. And the payment happened when my assistant ran the credit card. Nancy, our hiring manager, immediately got in touch with the new client, took them through their onboarding. Jennifer, our corporate trainer, was the one who was able to do the training with the assistant to get them up to speed. And at the end of all of it, I just got a testimonial from this same exact person saying what an amazing experience they'd had. And to be honest, I had almost kind of forgotten that just a month earlier, we were complete strangers. He had never even heard of me or my business. And yet, because of the machine that I'd put in place, we were able to take his entire process and all of it happened without me touching it. In addition, how long was the sales process, right? I was able to close that deal extremely quickly because my business, the market to message match was so tight that I was in the right room with the right people with the right message, that single conversation, those single 7 words were so powerful that it led to a transaction worth thousands of dollars for my team and I. If you want to know how you can build a machine like this, if you want to know how you can get the time, energy, space, the skills, the tools to elevate and get that kind of 80-20, 30,000 foot view of what needs to happen in your business so that you're not just making babies, but you're raising babies that are able to be self-sufficient adults in the near future, I encourage you to come check out an event that I've got going on in San Diego in just a few weeks. It's happening in October 2017. It's called the 80-20 Summit, and it's actually 2 presenters. It's myself and Perry Marshall, whom you've maybe heard of before. He's famous for having written a few very popular books. One is called 80-20 Sales and Marketing. Perry is extremely good at the 80-20 of sales and marketing, and I'm very good at the 80-20 of operations management, finance, and leadership. So come to the 80-20 Summit, and the 4 kind of main themes we're talking about are keep more profit, not just make more sales, but keep more profit, build structure in your team, build more structure in your business, hire the right team, and make your business run with less of your time. If you'd like more details, it's at the8020summit.com. You can just scroll on down. You can see the dates are the 4th and 5th of October, 2017 in San Diego, California. Our early bird pricing is expiring soon, so be sure to come and grab a ticket now. At the time of recording this video, we'd gone from 95 seats down to just, I think, 68, 69. So we're starting to sell tickets more and more quickly. This is the time to come and grab a ticket. Being an entrepreneur is a very challenging journey. And if we continue to have good ideas without good execution, if we continue to make babies without raising them, all it is a recipe for frustration and disappointment and exhaustion and broken dreams. When we see the other side, though, when we realize that there's actually a path to follow to create the business machine to bring our ideas into maturity, we finally get to graduate out of that really difficult period, which is getting off the ground, and we get to enjoy all the advantages of being at cruising altitude. It's possible. I'm there with some of my businesses. I help other entrepreneurs get there with their businesses. And the 80-20 Summit is one of the best events on the entire planet to help you do the exact same in just a few weeks from now. This is Tim Francis from Profit Factory. Check us out at the8020summit.com. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to watch this video, and I hope I get to see you in San Diego. Thank you.